I just needed one more shot at you. I want to say thanks to Colorado Avalanche Information Center and ARI. They supported this project financially. And I hope that this will build upon what both Colin and Sarah were talking about. And like Forrest said, this is a pretty much a finished copy, but I am very interested in feedback, so catch me afterwards, and if you have something to say about it, and or if you just don't understand it, it'd be good to know that too. Thanks.
Or small, wet or dry, slabs or loose snow. Sometimes avalanches are seemingly spontaneous, while at other times they require big triggers to get them to start. Some avalanches exist everywhere in the landscape, and some are only found in specific places. Some avalanches release in relatively predictable patterns, while others fail in surprising ways. The avalanche danger is a broad brushstroke of daily conditions. Avalanche problems are an extension of the danger scale and allow you, the traveler, to better visualize the danger and make decisions based upon the kind of avalanche you may encounter. Avalanche problems are defined using 4 elements: the kind of avalanche, where that avalanche exists in the terrain, how likely you are to trigger it, and how big it will be. These ideas are communicated by forecasters using icons and text. Avalanche character is simply a kind of avalanche with unique characteristics that influence terrain and travel choices. In the US, we use 9 distinct characters. Aspect elevation diagrams depict where these avalanches are most likely to be found. Picture this diagram as a mountain. The outer ring represents lower elevations, and the uppermost ring, the upper elevations. These diagrams are not a map and are not meant to be used as such. Rather, they are an idea of how the pattern of avalanche conditions may have developed. In this case, the diagram shows the forecaster expects avalanches on all aspects at upper elevations. In another scenario, the forecaster expects avalanches on east-facing aspects at all elevations. The chance of triggering an avalanche, or likelihood, varies day to day and sometimes hour to hour. Likelihood is visualized here with the size and the frequency of rings. Bigger, more frequent rings equals a higher likelihood of a human-triggered avalanche. It is described using the terms such as unlikely, possible, or certain. The term applied reflects the highest likelihood the forecaster expects on that day. Most avalanches are large when compared to a human, and all are dangerous if they are encountered in consequential terrain. Size is described using terms such as small, large, and historic. The size shown in a forecast is the largest expected avalanche. These 4 elements combined illustrate the type of expected avalanche. For example, here is a persistent slab on east-facing slopes that is relatively small and is difficult to trigger. Here we see a change in the location and the size and the likelihood. Remember that avalanche problems are part of the day's avalanche danger. For example, here you are on a day with moderate avalanche danger. The avalanche problem is persistent slabs on mid and upper elevation slopes that are small and difficult to trigger. As you can see, there are specific places where trouble exists. Overnight, we had a foot of new snow, the danger increases to considerable, and the persistent slabs on the same middle and upper elevation slopes are larger and more easily triggered. Ultimately, safe travel within the terrain becomes much more constrained. Another way to look at it is that your terrain management decisions may vary between days with the same danger level. Here you are on a day with moderate danger with small, easy to trigger wind slabs on north-facing slopes. Compare that to another moderate danger day where the avalanches are larger, not so easy to trigger, persistent slabs. In this case, even though the overall danger rating is the same, the avalanches are larger and more unpredictable, and your travel decisions should be influenced accordingly. Each day is different. The avalanche danger and associated avalanche problems are tools to communicate the day's hazard to the user. Your job is to use them.
Thanks for sharing that, Simon. We did dig up a wireless mic to help with questions, and we have a runner to run that around to folks. And so Simon, you can come on up, but he's interested in just kind of comments or questions about that movie. Just got a few minutes that we can devote to that. Anyone want? There we go. Oh, magic, it works.
In the historic slide you showed, you demonstrated a very large runout angle, and we don't generally associate runout angle of the avalanche with the size. I would have thought that size is more like the breadth or the depth of the avalanche rather than the runout distance. How do you feel about that?
There's a couple different ways to look at size. I think in this case, these descriptors come directly from Grant Statham's paper in 2010, and then another paper that's under review right now. And the idea behind the word historic in that case is basically avalanches that change the landscape. So runouts are part of that. So avalanches that come down and knock out trees, move dirt, take out towns, etc. So the largest, you could think about it as the largest on the end of the D scale, or the destructive size scale, of which runout is a part. Does that answer your question? Sort of? Not?
We'll take sort of. Thank you.
Right here in the green hat.
Thanks for that. I had one question about just using the term certain and whether or not forecasters might shy away from that, just like we shy away from using extreme as much in the US. So by adding that sort of certain, I don't know how many people want to pin their hat on that term, so maybe a term like very likely. We use those terms in climate, like the IPCC reports. So just sort of giving it a term and a probability next to it, so just an idea.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good comment. The term just down from certain is actually very likely, and the next one below that's possible. There's a lot of chatter about whether certain's applicable or not. Same with historic, like what does that mean? I think that the way I look at it, we basically take the verbiage from the literature that's out there, and our first goal in the US right now is to get, almost most avalanche centers are using this idea of avalanche problems. Not all, but the vast majority are. But they're not using them exactly the same way. So the first goal is to get people using the tool in the same way. At that point, then we can tweak the tool, especially in terms of these words, these descriptors that you're talking about, and try and hone in on things that communicate better. One thing these tools are designed for, that they're designed for people with a level 1 education, and so that's something to consider too. Like if we can get people using them the same way, we can train on them. At which point the verbiage is, it's not that it's not important, but it's not as important as if you're getting it right off the bat. One more, and then I'll get out of the way. Mark.
I've had a little bit of experience in trying to forecast avalanches, and I feel that if you're trying to forecast extreme, then you better be certain about something about it. Something's going to happen during extreme. You're certainly sure you're going to have avalanches, and maybe you're not going to have the historic size avalanches, but you're damn sure you're going to have avalanches. Otherwise, you're not going to go there. So I think that the term certain is as good of a descriptor as you can have for that particular danger level.
Yeah, I don't
Just my
disagree.
feelings.
Yep, I think that's a good comment. Let's do one more. There's a guy right here, and then I'll get down.
So you mentioned that terminology was important. I see that the characterization of likelihood is different than the characterization on the avalanche danger scale. So the words that you used in this film are for likelihood are different than the words that are on the avalanche danger scale.
I think they're catch me afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon.